He's got to go back. Stewie's on his own. But look at the time. Look at the time. There's 7 seconds. They've got the bomb. They're trying to build pyramids, but there's no more play. Stewie's won the round. We're going to overtime.
Cloud9 have done it! How have they done that? They came back all the way. All the way. How fitting it is Stewie to save them. The only man that could. The only man in position. Never wavering, never folding.
Around a very important, very crucial one. Can he deny Cloud9? We saw it from this position before. He cannot miss a single shot. Guardian waits patiently as Cloud9 sets the push up. Oh, it's happened! They made it work! Cloud9 are your E-League Major champions!
Hello, and welcome to episode 69 of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Tonight, we shall be discussing CSGO's historic championship win at the Boston Major, other esports news, and latest on League of Legends' continued success in the spring season. I'm your host, Havokpus, and today I'm joined by...
Joined by Dr.Manhatten, glad to join the cast once again.
Frozencreek, back from the dead, I guess. It's been a week or two.
And as always, but also never, Trey.
Can I plug in a quick fact?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, a Licorice is tied for third in total kills in LCS right now, behind Phoenix and Altec.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty crazy.
Quick facts.
Well, we can talk about that later, though, because right now, the story that everyone is abuzz about is Cloud9's monumental championship win at the Boston Major. This was not a second place finish. This was not a third or fourth place finish, friends. This was the championship win. This was a very big moment in CSGO and Cloud9 history.
For sure. This was, especially considering how close we look to going out in bracket 03. It was a big standing point to see the team actually come back from that adversity.
Havoc, can you give us a quick rundown of what exactly happened and what it kind of means to CSGO among the world and what it kind of means to CSGO in North America?
Yeah, so before this win, no North American team has ever won a major championship, and I believe we were only the second North American team to reach the finals. I think the first was Liquid, I believe.
Yeah, that's correct.
So, also what makes this win so big is the Herculean effort that Cloud9 put into winning this. So they were down 0-2 in the group stage. They reverse swept, beating teams like Astralis, Virtus Pro, and Vega Squadron. So, you know, pretty big deal teams in the CSGO scene. In the bracket stage for quarterfinals, Cloud9 had to go up against G2, this insane French super team that was supposed to be like the favorite, or one of the favorites to take the whole thing. Cloud9 crushed them 2-0 in probably one of the most dominant wins I've seen from them against G2. Semifinals rolls around, and we have to go up against SK Gaming, our Brazilian rivals that have always given us trouble and have always made things difficult for us. We pull out the 2-1 win, taking Mirage 16-3 and Inferno 16-8. So we're playing hot, we're playing strong, and in this final match, we have to go up against Faze Clan, our kryptonite. I think before we were like 08 or 09
We were
against Faze.
after after we lost Mirage, we were 0-9 against
Yeah, we were
FaZe
0
with our current roster.
9 against FaZe. And somehow we pulled ourselves together after a very close 14-16 loss on Mirage. On our map pick, we pulled ourselves together, beat them on Overpass 16-10, a dominant, controlled showing, and then in the closest razor's edge of games, we defeat Faze Clan 22-19, double overtime on Inferno to clinch the championship. It was such an exciting, tense moment for Cloud9 fans, for CSGO fans everywhere, and they did what seemed like the impossible, and everyone rejoiced.
Yeah, so like Trey, what would you kind of compare this to if people aren't familiar with CSGO? My first thought was maybe comparing it to golf's majors, because there's 4 every year. There's always the big one, the Masters, and then there's 3 other ones that kind of revolve around, I guess, different courses around the world. But like, the fact that they were able to do this in such a huge tournament, I think, is credit to whoever assembled this team and everyone who's worked day by day with this team, because they really picked it up for this performance, and this is by far the best I've ever seen Cloud9 CSGO play.
I would say for sure with that. It's not a bad analogy. Normally there's only around 2, possibly 3 majors in a year. There isn't really a big major. It's just kind of, they're all on the same scale. But yeah, this is really big overall. To have a full American team and be down from so far and come back to win this, it's actually really good for the North American scene as a whole. And I think a lot of our credit, and our players said it too, was to our coach Valens, who has been doing a lot of work also. But overall, the team, they said they've had motivation problems in the past, and they said they were feeling really down on themselves when they went down 0-2. But something struck within them, and it really is a miracle run to see something like this happen. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. Really interesting to see. I don't think we see it happen again with this roster. They looked amazing, but the former Immortals roster that had gone to 100 Thieves, that's now disbanded, wasn't allowed to go to this major. So that could have actually changed a lot. SK also had a sub, so that changed a lot. But overall, it's a huge win for North America.
Per the SK point, to be fair, it was Phelps. This is a guy that they have played a lot of, but I mean, yeah, I would say one thing that did go well was the fact that the 100 Thieves roster actually couldn't go due to visa issues, and then we got a lot of decent like map picks as well. You know, G2 like gave C9 in that playoff. They gave them Mirage, which was just like, that's like their bread and butter next to Train, and that's probably what helps with SK a bit as well. But yeah, pretty historic moment for just North American CS in general, and more importantly for the boys in blue and Cloud9.
Yeah, and I think you can try and take away anything you want from this win, and I've read quite a bit online of people trying to make excuses, but like there's no doubt about how well Cloud9 played. Like they didn't accidentally beat four of the 5 best teams in the world just on accident. This was an unprecedented a run by almost anyone. The draw itself was pretty shitty. Like, we shouldn't have been playing G2.
Pretty brutal.
Yeah. We shouldn't have been playing G2 that early. And then we went on and beat 3 of the top 5 teams in the world in the quarters, semis, and finals. And what I was saying was FaZe was arguably one of the best teams of all time, like ever assembled on paper. Which I think if you were to play that match 100 times, Cloud9 would lose the vast majority of them. But they really came out to play that day, and I think you could kind of see it in their eyes when they went down on that third map. What was it, like 15-9 or something? They had like 6 straight
I think so.
Match points.
It was 15-12 is when they hit 15. So.
Oh, okay, yeah, and you could just see it in their play that they just refused to lose. And I mean, I've seen a lot of sports in my life, and that was one of the best goal line stands I've ever seen by a team trying to hold off on the edge. And it wasn't like SK was just making mistakes and stuff. I think it would have been, I think, 18-15 us, and we had 3 match points in overtime, and Guardian came up huge a couple times, and I'm not sure who it was from FaZe, but he had that 2v1 and survived it with 11 health. Overall, it was absolutely insane, but you could just tell that Cloud9, it was there to win, and that they were never going to let go.
Yeah, I think the win was, I mean, the match itself and the win was it was such an emotional roller coaster, and I think that part of our win, just came down to the home crowd. Like, you hear the crowd chanting, every 5 seconds, it's USA,
Send
USA.
them home.
They were cheering, they were doing Cloud9 chants, they were doing USA chants, they were chanting in the final moment, send them home, and it was such a powerful thing to watch, to see everyone kind of getting behind, our team, and to see the team get such a big win. But I also just want to talk about our play for a minute, because it was something that I had never seen before from this roster. They were playing, everyone was hitting their shots. It was almost like they had auto aim or something. They were just hitting almost everything. They looking twice as coordinated as when I saw them previously. It felt like everything just clicked at that one moment, and they're like, oh, so this is how you play. And then everyone's just everyone went off. It's not like it was just one person. Skadoodle went off, Tarek went off, Rush went off, Stewie went off, Automatic went off. Everyone did their job, and everyone played exceptionally well, and I think that is what really sealed the deal for us. Outside of all those other fortuitous circumstances, like SK having a sub, or G2 just deciding to not play.
Well, I think also what it was is when we went into certain matches and we started having crowd games, there was a big shift in how we played. When we knew the crowd was on our side, we played with basically relentless aggression, knowing that we can rush, we can go through smokes, because they aren't going to hear our footsteps, because the crowd is so loud. And that change really changed the whole perspective, especially when you realize Stewie 2K has been running through smokes for almost 2 years now, and just going in, running straight through a smoke and killing somebody. So
I mean, he is the smoke criminal.
It's just amazing to see the strategy actually work out. And Dupree, who is on Astralis, even said, I guess it's time to start looking at C9 tapes and learning for their play.
Yeah, I mean, we just played exceptionally well. What were your guys' thoughts and feelings as soon as the match finished and we won, because I was really excited, but at the same time I kind of felt like I was kind of dreaming, because like, oh, no way that we actually won such a big deal tournament, you know, like a world's level tournament. And you know, I wake up the next day and I look at Reddit, and you know, it's still there, you know, we're holding the trophy, and it's just kind of this really interesting emotional roller coaster that you do. And I'm just curious how everyone else felt when that final shot was made.
It was a unifying moment for just, I think it was almost like one of those unifying esports moments, like, period. Like, the fact that this, like, even extended beyond CSGO is amazing. Like, first of all, you had such an amazing view count, which I think at peak was, what, 1.12 million? Like live viewers at peak, which is amazing considering that when you look at stuff like Overwatch or Dota or even League, like a lot of their viewers tend to come from like China and stuff like that, and that's where like, a lot of the viewers favorite. But you know, a lot of that was actually North American and like European viewers, so that was a good part. You had Overwatch casters, you had even some of our like North American League casters and some of the European casters just like all watching this game, like just in unison, just watching like this insane final. You had other C9 other C9 players like Mango, and I think Svenskeren was also somewhat like tuning in, but you know, they had a place at the same time when they were winning, so they couldn't really get to see too much of it. But we saw some support from Mango. I think also support from some of our former players as well. And even after a game in LCS, which we'll get to in a bit, you even saw Dash give like the C9 boys a shout out, like when he's like, you know, congratulations to that org period for winning that. And it was just such a unifying moment in just esports that I haven't seen since like maybe we got a glimpse of that when Astralis won the major in Atlanta last year.
So I have a couple questions. I'm gonna start out with the big one first. Is this the biggest achievement in Cloud9's history, do you think?
We also did win the Hearthstone World Championship. Not Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm. We won Heroes of the Storm World Championship, I think in its first season or something.
Yeah, we did. I don't know if that really compares to this. I guess in perspectives of esports, when you look at C9 as an org, yeah, I would say yes.
I would agree as well. I think the only thing that comes probably even remotely, the only things that come to mind is like that come remotely close to this is like maybe some of like Mango's big tournaments and like a C9 League winning IEM San Jose back in 2014. Last time the OG roster ever won anything, but that's probably what, and even then it's I still would take this major in terms of the level of achievement like 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that it would take a lot for a League of Legends to be able to stack up to a win like that on such a big stage. My next question is, so what do you guys think this says about the NA CSGO scene? And do you think it says more about the NA CSGO scene, or do you think it says more about the quality of Cloud9?
All I know is that it says that we are the best.
I think overall it does show that North American CS can stand up to other regions. There are good players in North America. The problem is a lot of them just don't have the teammates to get through it. I think that most likely this should help the North American scene as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. I personally think it says more about Cloud9 than the North American scene in general, just because the North American scene has kind of been lagging behind, and Cloud9 has mostly been the outlier in this series of CS:GO events, you could look back a year or two and find a couple of other teams who have done well, like Liquid. But I think this does say more about Cloud9's team and organization in general than it does about a North American CS:GO. I'd be willing to change my opinion if we were to see a more North American teams make it to the major proper, but until then, I would hold off on rushing too much judgment. My last question was, I know a lot of people were saying afterwards that CS:GO is the best esport to watch. Do you guys think that that's fair?
I can start with this one. I agree that it's one of the more simpler ones to watch, and it's one that I think that a lot of the casual fan can pick up more easily than like, you know, a hardcore fan such as ourselves. And I think even Monte Cristo did this when he was just discussing a bunch of esports, where he's just like, when you think about CS:GO, it's probably the one that's like, I mean, it resembles like real life events. You know, you have terrorists and guys fighting terrorists. You know, you have a guy with a pistol versus a guy with an AK. What is the advantage that the guy with the sniper has? You know, what do these smokes do? Why are they, you know, like, compare that to trying to explain to like some average Joe, hey, this meta is ardent sensor right now, and you know that allows them to do this, but they want to scale into the late game. Or, you know, talking about, okay, they want to take the high ground with the DPS, but you know they're trying to flank around with the tank. But you know, it's much more complicated to explain like Overwatch or League than to the everyman of CS:GO. So I think that from a wider reach, it can appeal to the everyman, and also to hardcore guys like ourselves, you know, who maybe play the game and know all the little intricacies of eco rounds and, you know, stuff like that.
Not only that, but also just to say that CS:GO is probably the most viewer-friendly esport, that and Rocket League. And I think that to a normal viewer who doesn't play games that often, CS:GO would probably be the best. To somebody who actually plays these games often, I do think CS:GO is very entertaining, but it doesn't have some of the complexities that the leagues have, the Dotas have, the even Melee and Smash 4 have, where there are these wild things that can go on that are so precise and pinpointed and frame perfect that you have to really know what's going on to appreciate it.
Yeah, I can agree with all of that. I have one thing I want to add to Havoc. What do you think?
I mean, they've pretty much already basically said what I think. Pretty easy to watch, pretty exciting to watch. Other stuff is more complex, and yada yada yada.
Yeah, most of what they said is how I feel also. The one thing I wanted to also add about CS:GO was I feel like CS:GO does an incredible job of maintaining the tension that not a lot of other esports can do. Because the match on Sunday itself was it was like almost 6 hours long, and it almost felt like I was going to shit my pants the whole time because I was so stressed out. And I think what is really cool about it is every round feels important when it's a really big match, and anyone can win any round with just a little bit of luck, which is not something you see as much in a League of Legends and such. And that was one thing I really grew to appreciate in CS:GO while I was watching it over the weekend, because I'm not totally versed in CS:GO.
Yeah, well, a final congratulations to the CS:GO team. Great play, guys. You deserve yourself a little break. Enjoy that trophy. Enjoy that prize money. Hope to see you guys at the next event.
One last question. Who's your MVP?
Tarek?
I'd have to go with somewhere either Tarek or probably like Skadoodle. Honorable mention though to Shroud. I mean not Shroud. Stewie. Just because of that one, like how he held the pit, like that pretty much set us into overtime. That's kind of the play that was really burnt into my head for the most part.
Oh, that turned me on so much.
I'd probably have to go with Tarek as well.
Yeah, I think Tarek is definitely the safe choice. His ace, and I don't think it was overtime, but it was on the third map. It was absolutely insane. I think Tarek's the easy choice, like I said. I think Automatic would be a fun choice, just because, not because he played the best, but because he was just so consistent and stable throughout the whole event. And without him performing as well as he did, I don't think that this team would have been able to win. But I think you can say that about anyone. I have a soft spot for Stewie with how well he played, but I think Tarek's a safe choice.
Yeah, well, they all played super well. They're all MVPs in my heart. But anyway, we should be moving on. So, first little other esports update. The PUBG crew, at least the North American PUBG crew, I'm honestly not sure what the Korean roster is even doing right now. The North American PUBG team participated in the NA closed qualifier for IEM Katowice. They were originally down to like 15th or 16th place, but they won games 4 and 5, so they shot themselves up to like 2nd place. So they finished 2nd and have qualified for the IEM Katowice main event. I honestly don't know what they're doing right now to make them be more successful. If it's the current lineup with whoever they're playing, I don't care. Just keep doing what you're doing because it's working. So hopefully they'll continue to do well in that event. I'm guessing no one has any thoughts on PUBG, so
I'm glad they're doing better. Yeah, I don't have much to add, just that I'm glad that they were able to find a 2nd place finish, because they've been all over the place in a lot of the tournaments that I've been following.
I have noticed that recently Chappie hasn't been starting and they've been playing with someone else. Maybe that's the key, and just the person that's been subbing in for him just has better team synergy and they're just playing overall better without Chappie. I don't know. Whatever the case is, just keep doing that so you can win more. Moving on to Vainglory news.
Fair enough.
Sadly, the team lost their 3rd place match against Hammers Gaming in the Halcyon Elite tournament thingy. So they finished 4th. Kind of sad, but our Vainglory team is really weird because they play super good on stage and they play like one of the best teams in the world on stage, but online they play really different, and it's kind of weird. I'm not sure what the case is, but they finished 4th, which kind of sucks. Also, there is a bit of a weird thing that happened last week. We might have one of our new members for the 5-man Vainglory roster revealed. Hammers Gaming's starting all over. I know that's a weird name. Temporarily changed his Twitter profile to feature the Cloud9 Twitter banner and other such Cloud9 things, but then it was immediately changed back. I'm still kind of unsure about Cloud9's future, if they're going to be wholeheartedly moving into this 5v5 era or what, but I will try to keep everyone updated as the story comes out. Finally, moving on to Overwatch. London actually experienced some turbulence last week, and they experienced their first loss. While they did beat the San Francisco Shock 3-1, they continued to struggle on controls of maps, which made it kind of difficult that week. When they played off against Boston Uprising, that ultimately ended to their demise, losing a close 2-3, with, of course, losing on Lijiang Tower, which is a control map. if you want to listen to myself and some others talk about London's experience a little bit more in depth, as well as talk about their upcoming matches against the Seoul Dynasty and Shanghai Dragons, please check out The Dogfight. It's a super fun podcast, and we talk about all things London, Spitfire, and Overwatch League.
Yeah, just one thing to add about the loss. I think we're starting to see that playing 2 matches in 2 days is kind of bad, because Seoul lost 2, didn't they? They
lost to New York, and New York lost to Philly.
Yeah, so I wonder if they're going to try and fix scheduling around teams playing 2 matches in 2 days, but they might like the parity factor around it, because I'm not sure. I don't think it's entirely fair unless both teams facing off against each other are playing 2 in 2 days, but it did kind of feel shitty. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you want to win, you have to step up, and they look like shit this second day. So a loss was well deserved. So
yeah, they looked kind of bad, but I think they also just looked super tired. Like if you looked at like Bergering's player cam, he just looked exhausted, and I think that like their match against the Shock was like late in the evening one day, and then their match against Boston was like the first one, so they had to basically play like 2 matches in a row. So I think that definitely affected like their play ability.
Yeah, and if you watched Josen's cam, it would have just been a stream of him dying over and over again.
Yeah, it was unfortunate, but hopefully the team is well rested for tomorrow's big match against Seoul Dynasty. But let's move on to League of Legends and talk about our League of Legends team, or I guess teams, and their continued success. The Academy team, Jax Seamen. That now that I say that out loud, it sounds bad.
All right, buddy.
Okay.
Hey, it's episode 69, man.
Look what I wrote this. I thought this was super
go
clever.
balls deep. I don't know how I feel about this.
You had to have known.
I thought it was a great X-Men parody, and then I felt proud. I was gonna be like, I'm gonna do an X-Men reference. This could be great.
I mean,
Clearly, I was in the wrong.
I think I'm required to be offended, but it's episode 69, so I don't think I can be offended.
Anyway, the Academy roster remains undefeated after some pretty good victories against 100 Themes and Echo Fox. So I'm starting to think that we probably have one of the best Academy rosters, because our veterans are playing well and our rookies are playing well. And if you have those 2 things work out for you, you're probably going to be successful in Academy League. And we're doing that.
I think a lot of teams also don't have players, to be fair. Like, they're still waiting on imported players. And teams don't really have synergy yet. So right now I think we're the best, but still we're going to have to wait and see what happens once the teams actually get their players.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't want to derail too much, but one thing I saw online was it's not fair for Cloud9 to put players with LCS experience like Gold and Glue into the roster. Do you guys think that's unfair for the Cloud9 Challenger team? Because I definitely don't.
I mean,
I personally think that the pro player pool is actually pretty small, and it's not worth wasting academy spots on players that have a very small chance of making it into NALCS. So I think that using kind of like the rejects is totally okay.
I mean,
I don't even... Sorry, you can go first.
So there's a couple things. So the first is that, like, people like Keith and Golden Glue, like, you saw them play in the LCS, and they really struggled, right? So, you know, you're gonna complain about Keith and Golden Glue being an academy, but if they were in LCS, you complain, like, why are they even on a roster spot in the first place? The second point is the rules state you can have 2 veterans. You know, Clutch Gaming signed, you know, fucking Piglet to be their ADC.
And Moon is their jungler.
Yeah. So like, why should you even complain about that?
Those were both starters last year.
I mean, if the rules say you can have 2 veterans, you can have 2 veterans. Why complain about it? Those are in the rules.
And
as long as they do everything in the rules, why should you even get upset?
And to be fair, Golden Glue isn't even considered a veteran, I believe. Because while he has played in the LCS, the majority of his time was spent in the Academy League. So, he only played a total of, I think, like 7 LCS games during the past 2 years, so...
Also, I'm looking at it right now, and if you were to just see how many players on this Academy team, like all the rosters, have actually, at the very least, played a game in LCS, like, it's actually a shorter list, you know, who's a rookie here. Like, if you actually look at TSM Academy, every single one of those players has at least played a single game. You know, Brandini and Greg got to play some time on Echo Fox. Mr. Rawls was, like, he's been in the EU since, like, 2014. And actually, the only player who hasn't had any experience is their mid laner, Blaze Olive. And then you had Shady, who was a support for the most part on Phoenix 1. TL has Mickey and Hard, both of which have a good amount of experience in LCS. Optic actually does have an entirely new roster, but they had to use Lemon and Acadian just to fill it in. Golden Glue Special, but it's a recurring theme, and I think that I remember even High. Remember when that whole Cloud9 Challenger thing happened, where they basically had the entire original Cloud9 roster, but they had just Altec and Contracts and Rush. Like, even High admitted, you know, like, this is a kind of an investment that you're making, and only a complete fool would just throw in 5 random players together and say, oh, here, you know, make a team. So I do think that the fact that these guys aren't just boosting the academy, because there's really nothing much to gain other than you have a job, but it's mainly just to help, you know, get some get a experience, like a perspective of like someone who's been on that stage. Like, imagine maybe something that Greg could learn a bit more from, like, another person like Mr. Rawls or Shady, or maybe Wiggly could, you know, learn something from like Keith or Golden Glue. You know, it's really valuable experience, or like just perspectives regardless.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the boat that there's a very small chance that many of these academy players actually get a chance at a long-term roster spot. So any help you can get to develop those players is important. And the mid lane talent pool in NA is really small, and Golden Glue maybe has a chance. But this is also a chance for Golden Glue to show off, and us maybe to sell his contract and make a couple bucks that way. Like, he could also in the meantime help Zazel. He can also help Wiggly, and not League anymore. What did he change his name to? The top laner?
Shiro.
Shiro, yeah. Like, I think those 3 players maybe have a shot at making it to the big stage. And working with Golden Glue and Keith is huge. So I think that person should just suck it. Whoever brought up that topic.
Also, I want to say the academy teams, especially in this environment, are extremely important. Just because if NA ever decides that they do want more teams, especially when you're using best of 1, imagine going to 16 teams. Oh shit, you need 30 more players. And where are those players going to come from when you only can have so many imports? Is going to be mainly from academy teams.
Honestly, that sounds like a shit show to me.
That's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I have a lot to say about that, so that's fair. Alright, let's move on to LCS then, I guess.
Yeah, so LCS, we went 1-1, but I think it was an okay 1-1. It wasn't like a disgraceful 1-1. We lost to Echo Fox, which currently is sitting at the top of the standings, undefeated. And we defeated 100 Thieves. The Echo Fox game was really interesting because we went all in on this weird like split pushing comp that was just gonna like clear waves all day long, but when it came to team fighting, we kind of had the short end of the stick there. I'm actually really curious. What do you guys? And I guess I'll ask Trey specifically since he was blinking. But what do you think about our comp for the Echo Fox game?
I think the comp was actually beautiful.
It worked well for the first 30 minutes.
There was an interview, I believe, I think it was with Smoothie, after the second day, where he literally said, yeah, no, we should have won that Echo Fox game. They started doing Baron, and then we all entered like twice, and then we lost our lead. And that is basically what happened that game. C9 was set up for victory, and all they really had to do was continue to use what they had, but they kind of got caught in one bad position, and they just kept bleeding themselves thinner and thinner and thinner until Echo Fox could catch back up.
Yeah, the whole Baron thing, you could probably set that to Benny Hill music and just watch as Cloud9 players go one after another to try to stop the Baron, and then it ends with Sven going in and actually stealing it.
The worst thing is that Sven gets it in the end.
Yeah.
That whole thing, and Sven gets it. So the game basically just runs another 6 minutes into the ground. It was not the best performance there. To quote Reaper, do you have brain today? The answer that day was no.
I have a differing opinion on that. I wasn't a huge fan of our team comp. I wasn't a huge fan of throwing down the gauntlet on Huni either. I think even despite seeing how well Licorice performed the first week, our goal shouldn't have been to throw down the gauntlet at arguably the best top laner in the region. And throwing down Jace was kind of that. And he played his lane okay. Like, Dardock had very little influence over top lane. But I didn't feel like he ever got a big enough lead to ever command that lane. And at some point, he kind of just got outscaled and was almost losing fights to Gnar. And like the one thing to me that really bothered me particularly was the TP at Baron Pit. Huni was a good like 3 seconds earlier than Licorice, and Licorice flanked the team fight from behind, which is fine. Like, it's not the worst idea I've ever seen. But then he just stood there in melee form, and he literally didn't do anything for that fight. But he took an auto attack build with Cleaver and a Blade of the Ruined King, and if he would have been able to auto attack a couple times in range form, I think that fight could have been different, because he would have drawn pressure from the front of the fight and maybe brought something to the back of the fight, and Sneaky might have been able to survive, or Justin might have been able to survive. But I think at the end of the day, you can't totally blame all of it on Licorice. Yeah, the TP was super late, and he didn't really do what he probably should have done once he got there. But Sneaky and Jensen at that point looked like rookies. It just dying and jumping into team fights too early. Their positioning was pretty bad, and Jensen's damage was actually like offensive. So I don't want to put all the blame on Licorice's Jace, but I just felt like it wasn't the best comp for them to beat the team that they were going up against. I think if they were going up against a mid to lower level team, that they would have had more success.
Any rebuttals?
I understand your point, but I think the problem wasn't necessarily with the team comp. I think the team comp was fine. It's just they had to play for early, and that Baron basically ruined that objective. So
yeah, that's pretty much what I had to say about that. Was to Trey's point.
Yeah, I think that they were kind of stuck into the position of trying to give a Licorice a pick he wouldn't get smoked on, and Jace was the best option. But I don't think that team comp was our best chance to beat Echo Fox. So I want
Best
to
of ones.
yeah, I want to say that it just, I don't think it was a good team comp is what I'm basically trying to say. I think it was a too advanced team comp for where we're at in the season at the moment, and where Licorice is at as a player. He's not Khan, so we can't expect him to carry games all by himself, especially against Huni, who is a world finalist. So maybe we should have drafted better around the Gnar and tried to get a Gnar into Licorice's hands, but I didn't love our comp.
I think our comp was pretty, I would say experimental, and I liked it. Even if you take the loss, I think it was good on-stage practice.
On the bright side, we did beat 100 Thieves pretty handily, and they were also coming into that weekend undefeated as well. Or that day, I guess, undefeated. And we beat them pretty easily, actually.
Yeah,
that was
not
a
really
team that
much
could
to say
beat
about
TL.
that.
Yeah. I can't think of anything to talk about for the LCS stuff. The CSGO stuff this weekend really killed our League of Legends discussion.
Oh, and for good reason.
Yeah, totally. I guess for 100 Thieves, I think it showed that 100 Thieves kind of got lucky the first week and a half. Their play was extremely mediocre. Medios looked kind of like a rookie jungler at some points, getting caught out. And I was just pretty underimpressed with them overall. So I'm going to chalk it up to a bad day, but because I would hate to see a team with a former Cloud9 player on it do poorly. But I thought that we did a good job of starving them of vision, but I still think that we still could have played it better. But I'm happy with a win. If you guys have anything else to add, go ahead. If not, I'll share some facts about our first two weeks with you guys.
Yeah, I was gonna ask one final question. So do you think that this team is on the right track? So we're 3-1 right now. We're tied for second with like Liquid, 100 Thieves, and I can't remember the other one. But
It's only those two.
Great. So we're 3-1. Our new additions are playing really well, and they seem to have already gathered a bunch of cohesion and synergy among the team. Our core is playing super duper strong and is really helping out and being a dominant force in the game. Are we on the correct trajectory to do well in the future of this first franchised season, or could we do better?
I absolutely think that there's room for improvement, especially due to the fact that of all like the teams that I'm looking at right now, the only ones that I could see us like on the same level as it stands right now in week 2, Echo Fox we did lose to, but we definitely put up a fight against them. It wasn't like we just completely just rolled over and died. Yeah. I would say the only test I have thus far, based on the overall like look of and like just based on what the waters are for the NALCS thus far, the only team I'm kind of just eyeing for the immediate future, or who we have left to play, is Fly, TSM, Liquid, Clutch, Optic, and like that's pretty much it. Like the only team I'm really that only even makes me remotely nervous is probably Liquid. And if we can beat them and maybe just maybe like because it's double round robin beat Echo Fox again, I would say we're poised to at the very least make top 4, and if we can keep this trajectory up, we could get a bye week for the playoffs, which would be insanely valuable.
I agree, but I want to say with a word of caution.
Of course.
TSM will rise up in the standings.
100%.
And their coaches said it. They know their problems, and we've seen that they're starting to understand their problems. And the second they start fixing their problems, they're going to shoot back up to what everybody thought was TSM's going to be one of the best teams this split. It's just, when is that going to happen? And that could be this week, that could be the week after. All we know is that TSM almost guaranteed will make playoffs. And they, while they look weak now, they are still a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I think that the day that I sleep on TSM is probably the day that I'm a crazy fool.
I think the good news is that TSM already has three losses, and I can't imagine a team getting a bye in playoffs with more than 5. So they are at least 60% of the way to their losses, and they haven't played too many top teams besides Team Liquid. Is that correct?
They played Liquid, Echo Fox, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Optic,
So they played 2 teams.
Yeah.
Okay, so even if they're able to split the top 3 teams in the future 1-1, like, that's still 6 losses, and I would imagine a 6-loss team would not be getting a bye. So I think we're on a good track to getting a bye in playoffs at the current moment, but I'm still not sold on Cloud9 being a top 2 team this split. I still need to see more.
Come on, buy it with Frozen. Do it.
No, I'm not gonna buy it yet, but I'm just not convinced.
Maybe you can rent. Renting is a cheaper alternative.
Renting
By the way,
is something I would do.
TSM plays Golden Guardians this week. That actually is going to be a huge match, because that'll determine basically who is the bottom of the league right now. So
Yeah,
stay
that's true.
tuned for that.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that's true. I guess we shouldn't spend too much time talking about this. There's 2 matches to be played this week. I just wanted to add a couple stats about Cloud9 as a whole this year. Let me make sure I get the right ones. We are actually, in every game so far, we've gotten the first 3 towers first. We also have the first dragon in every game, and we also have the first baron in every game. So I think that those are good indicators that we're playing decently okay. But still, I'm still not sold. I'm excited to see how we climb and such. Oh, we actually are basically tied for most wards per minute also. So that's also good. So solo queue players learn from Cloud9 there. But
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I think a lot of those are promising to see from a tempo perspective.
One thing I did want to mention, actually, I think there's a stat. I think I read it this morning from either Tim Severhusen, who's the guy who runs Oracle's Elixir,
Yeah, that's what
or
we're looking
Kelsey
at.
Milzer. I think I read that we also have some of, if not the quickest average game time in the entire NALCS. I think tied with like Liquid. So or like
we
something.
are actually 4th in average game time currently.
Really?
It's
I thought
Clutch
that
Gaming with 32.7 minutes, Team Liquid 34.7, CLG with 35.8, and Cloud9 with 39.9, according to Oracle Elixir. But that's
Yeah, I'll write some
it's still in the 2nd tier of game times, I guess. Because those are the only 4 teams under 41 minutes. Actually, Optic has over 50 minutes of average game time.
Do you think we should move on to predictions for this week? We're playing Optic and
I was
Clutch.
waiting for my moment to strike, but you guys were jabbering about stats. So before we look at playoffs and all that, we have the week 3. So Saturday, February 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern, we play against Optic, And Sunday, February 4th at 8 p.m. Eastern, we play against Clutch Gaming. So, Optic roster, just to kind of run it down real quick for anyone who doesn't know, is Zig, Acadian, Power of Evil, Arrow, and Lemon Nation. So, Optic is kind of interesting because they've had close games, but they're currently sitting at 1-3. So, how do you feel about this matchup, and is it going to be a slam dunk, or is it going to be kind of difficult? I want to start with Dr.Manhatten.
In the match versus Optic, I mean, Optic were basically, I mean, they've memed about it, but it's very true. Optic are basically last year's generic Green Wings, where despite them being not the best team, they just know how to drag these games on for very, very unholy like levels of just, I mean, the games have been relatively long, but Optics have been on another level of just, 45 plus minutes, and it's just, it's crazy what they can do. They did manage to take a win off FlyQuest, so I guess they're feeling somewhat confident. However, when I just look at the individual lanes, I just don't see, just on paper, when it comes to individual lanes, I just don't see too much advantage that they can acquire. Maybe Acadian does something cool against Faze, and maybe Arrow does something that's sneaky, but we're going into a slightly new AD carry meta where Ezreal is no longer relevant thanks to the Klepto and the Ezreal level 1 nerfs. So if they're going again with this like super turtle strategy, it would be interesting just to see if C9 can actually draft accordingly and like draft something that's scaled for like something that scales very well. Against Clutch Gaming, I'm actually feeling more confident in that one than I am against Optics, because again, the Optic has these long ass matches. Against Clutch, Solos have been getting like punished severely in all of his matches, and I think that Licorice will take advantage of that if he can get some help from Sven Skaren. Lyra's definitely a good jungler to be noted with. I think the only real threat on Clutch is Febivin, and I think that Jensen could definitely stand toe to toe with him.
I actually wouldn't sleep on Apollo and Hakuho. That's Clutch Games. Bottom lane, for anyone that doesn't know, Apollo and Hakuho are actually super good. I know when they were on Envy, everyone kind of slept on Envy, but they actually did pretty well.
Because they were trash.
And
dude, Hakuho has been good forever.
Yeah, Hakuho
like since Renegades,
good.
Hakuho, like, don't sleep on Hakuho. He's a good player. I think it's a 2-0, though.
even with
Likewise,
Febivin
and that's fair
and
enough.
Lyra and Apollo and Hakuho on Clutch Gaming.
2-0.
Oh, okay. Trey has spoken.
I think I'm in the same train. I think we match up well with both teams. I don't think they can overwhelm us at any position. Clutch Gaming specifically, with their strong mid lane, I think we do okay against that. PoE, Power of Evil's a good matchup for Jensen also. Personally, I'm super excited to see Power of Evil go against Jensen, so I think we should win both of these games. I think on a macro level and on a teamwork level, we should be ahead above both of these teams. So I'm gonna go with a 2-0. Unlike last week, I think that the odds of us losing a game are much slimmer. But it is best of ones and Lyra, so I guess we'll just have to see.
I will go 2-0 as well, but I will do a very reluctant 2-0. Like Dr.Manhatten said, Optic can just drag out these games through Hell and Creation. So if Cloud9 gets fatigued enough, they could slip up and lose, but that usually doesn't happen too often. And I think we do have the superior roster, at least on paper, to take down Optic fairly easily. Clutch is going to be difficult, I think, because you do have some actually pretty good names on there. You have Lyra, who is pretty good at being just an aggressive jungler. Febivin is a very talented mid laner, and he got a pentakill like last week on Azir, and he looked super good. And you have Apollo and Hakuho, who should not be slept on in the bottom lane. So I think Clutch is actually going to be pretty difficult, but I think we have the better synergy and we have the better core group of players, and I think that will give us the edge to beat Clutch, but it won't be a walk in the park, I feel. Does anyone have any other final points? We ran kind of long, but anything?
I think Jensen outlanes Febiven, and Clutch doesn't matter. I think he does the same thing to PoE, and once the mid lanes fall apart on both those teams, I think they kind of just fall apart as a whole.
Okay. I agree that Jensen is, as he said, insane. So, looking forward to seeing how that plays out. But yeah, if no one has anything else to say, I'm going to close this out. So, thank you everyone for listening to this 69th episode of Bodied, the Cloud9 Fancast. Feel free to tweet questions and feedback to @C9Bodied or email us at bodiedfancast@gmail.com. Questions might be answered on the next podcast or whenever we get a chance to, so feel free to shoot us a line anytime. We love to interact with people over Twitter.